Hey guys, so today we're going to talk a little bit about simplicity and something that I think has started to, well, we're starting to get to that magical point which I wouldn't say predicted, but that I've had this gut feeling that we're going to arrive at. And I actually just the other day I had this epiphany and I realized that we were basically already here. So let's get into it. Now, why am I so dramatic? Well, it's actually very simple. You see, when it comes to JavaScript, because yes, this is going to be a video about JavaScript, because hey, I love JavaScript, I'm sorry. It is my favorite language, without, hands down. It's really good. It is really, really good. Anywho, one of the things that I've been discussing with a few people on my comments and stuff of that nature is, what are the requirements to be a I don't even know what to call it anymore. I just go with what the industry calls it, which is a front-end developer, which is basically just an alias for JavaScript expert, or UI/JavaScript expert. Now, a lot of people don't really agree with me on this, and that's okay. It's all I can say is that I can only relay what I know I do every day and what I know the requirements are for all the jobs, basically, and what my coworkers have to do, and what my previous coworkers who all had the title front-end developer. Then I leave the rest to you to argue the semantics of what that actually means. But yesterday I was looking through this. Well, there was this issue, and this was a magical one. My coworker came up to me and he said, "Frederick, I have this weird thing. I don't know what to do." And I said, "Okay, cool. Let's have a look at it." And he was showing me an import that he was using for one of the React projects, and basically he found that there was no, he was importing a specific module, trying to access the function, and there was simply no function. It could not be found. Now, I told him, I know what the problem is here, but I need to show you for you to understand it. Now, to give you a bit of a backstory, I've been, since I pretty much started, trying to promote the idea of good practices. I've been promoting the idea that it's important for us to, that the reason why things go so bad usually in JavaScript is because it requires a lot of experience and skill and a lot of pain and just going through that for you to learn how to do things in this environment in order for it to actually work long term, especially at large scale, because it usually starts out as most of these people I talk to. I mean, if you do it at small scale, it is super easy, guys. And that's the beauty of JavaScript. The beauty of this language and the beauty of this ecosystem is that it's massive. You have so much resources, so many resources, you have so much help to get and so many tutorials, all these awesome things. And it's very easy to get started with. I mean, anybody can pick up JavaScript and learn it and start working in it. But it gets really tricky when you mistake that simplicity at small scale for the same sort of thing when you get to large scale, because one day you may wake up and all of a sudden you have all these really weird problems that you've created for yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of people blame JavaScript for these issues, and I just don't think that's fair. So I told them, let me show you, because I've been telling most of my coworkers that and my boss as well, that I need a little bit of time to just to go sweep through all of the code, because there's quite a lot of problems with this code piece. And I mean, I don't think I've ever met anybody or worked at any company where JavaScript and everything that is associated with it is not in some way a problem. But in this scenario, it is quite a problem. And I've been telling them that I suspect that we have quite a few issues. So I go to my desk and I grab one of my favorite plugins because I know what this issue is. It's for the people who may not know this. When you see that sort of issue, when you see that there's a clear import between one module and another, but when you actually in this case it's Webpack, but it works in Node as well. But when you actually try to access that function and it's not there, that means that there's most likely a resolution problem. In other words, there's a circular dependency, most likely between you and the module that you are requiring. Because when that happens, Node in this scenario, which is of course something you don't need to know as a front-end developer, because hey, what does Node have to do with it? Well, quite a lot actually, because this is the way that CommonJS and Node and all these systems work. So when you try to resolve that dependency, it simply creates a copy with the temporary values. But there's also a few cases where it can't do this. This is one such case. And so I install one of my favorite plugins for this, and then I just run our build, and it outputs a massive list of all the circular dependencies that we have, and it's monstrous. And I can grab my coworker and I say, this is the problem that I've been warning you about. This is the suspicions I've had all along, where I've said that I think that the slowness and like the unperformance and all these issues that most of our coworkers and my boss has been complaining about, it's due fundamentally to the fact that when you work and we've been working for this long, you simply don't adhere. We've gotten to this point because I'm not saying that it's not because you're not good at what you do. It's more that you don't adhere to the good practices, and you don't really think so much about how you structure your JavaScript project long term. So in order for me to solve this, now I have to, I can just fix it by fixing this specific circular dependency, but since we have so many, you can imagine how many issues potentially we have in the code base. Now JavaScript, Node and CommonJS is actually very clever, so for the most part this shouldn't be much of a problem, but it is something we should address. And I said, it's the same thing I've been doing when I do memory profiling and trying to figure out what our allocation looks like, and how if we have any memory leaks as part of our build and all of this stuff. And these are the sorts of things you get to be a little bit of an expert on, or I wouldn't say expert, but you get to do this quite often when you get to a certain level of experience, when you work quite a lot with JavaScript and front-end and stuff of this nature. And that's the thing that I've been trying to say to a lot of the people out there who seems to have this notion that JavaScript and front-end is easy, or that there's just a very small requirement for you when you're working in that environment. And I can tell you firsthand that it's not easy. It's easy if the only thing that you consider to be front-end related are things that are happening on the web page, but there's quite a lot more going on there. And so for you to be able to do this effectively, I can tell you right now, you will need to learn Node and doing like memory profiling and all these sorts of things, because usually when people have an issue with front-end, they don't have the experience to actually solve it. So they have what they call a front-end developer or an expert or some person like that to take a look at it. So what I want you to take away from this, guys, is that when it comes to JavaScript and it comes to this sort of development, it's actually surprisingly difficult. It used to be the case just 5-10 years ago. JavaScript was this very simple ecosystem where you had a script, you put that in a script tag on an HTML page, and you ran it, and that was the end of the story. But today there's an entire ecosystem of tools and like different practices, and there's I'm just going to be honest with you, the learning curve for getting good at JavaScript has gone up by quite a bit. I mean, these days you can barely even look at the source code in the browser and figure out what a script does, because most people are bundling and minifying things and running them through something like Webpack, for example, which is completely, almost all but it's not understandable or comprehensible to a regular human. So it's a very, very powerful language, but you should not underestimate it. What you do in your if you do some small script, or you play around a little bit with jQuery, the distance between that and doing like professional grade, high-end software development in JavaScript, the distance between those two is actually very, very large. And we have arrived at that magic moment where I've said, which I have been claiming is going to happen, and it happened very quickly, where the requirements for being a good JavaScript or front-end developer, whatever you want to call it, to actually do that well, has gone so high that now you actually just have to be a really good developer in general to be able to do it. You can no longer just have a shallow understanding of how computers work, how memory works, and how all these things fit together and still do the job properly. You can absolutely survive as it, but if you want to be good at it, you actually have to go the extra mile these days. Have a great day.